Final Fantasy VII. I remember the first time I saw a Final Fantasy game on the shelves in my local game store. It was that traditional Final Fantasy style cover, the logo on the white background. At the time I thought, what a terrible front cover, that must obviously be a bad game. What a newbie mistake to make. I was not ready for this game. You've got over-the-top battles, the insane scale of the world, crazy minigames, badass characters, and brilliant storytelling with some of the biggest twists in gaming. God, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Don't judge a book by its cover, well don't be judging a game by its cover either. Because I came across a review for Final Fantasy VII in my latest issue of PlayStation Max, which was the magazine I got at the time. This game sounded awesome and I can remember being impressed by some of the character artwork. Wish I had that magazine to show and I couldn't find any scans online either. Fast forward and we're back to the game store to actually purchase Final Fantasy VII, and it turns out it was that one game with the blank cover, but I risked it for a chocolate biscuit and made the purchase. Still to this day, Final Fantasy VII is my personal favourite game of all time. It's even been a big inspiration for going after a career and qualifications in game design and game development. I've actually been holding off on just making this video for a long time, just because I'm worried I can't give this game what it deserves. But hell, I've held back long enough and I'm giving this a shot. So, leaving the world of Nintendo cartridges behind, this is actually the first Final Fantasy game to come to the PlayStation. Pop the first disc in and you're presented with the opening credits and the nostalgic Final Fantasy prelude. This is the general Final Fantasy theme and it seems to get better and better with every game. I just need to hear this prelude and I'm ready for another replay through any good Final Fantasy game. The opening cinematic was easily the best game visuals my eyes had seen by 1997. Panning out from a flower girl, we discover our setting, the gigantic Mako-powered city of Midgar. Mako being a juicy liquid form of the planet's energy. We're in a much more modern setting, unlike the previous games which had more magical fantasy worlds for the most part. So, the city of Midgar is split into 8 sectors, like a perfectly cut pizza. The rich living in the plates above and the poor driven to poverty in the slums below. The opening cinematic transitions flawlessly into gameplay as one of Midgar's trains pulls up to a station. We're briefly introduced to our main character and mercenary Cloud as he leaps from the train. Right off the bat we've got 3D character models on a 2D pre-rendered background, like toppings on a thin crust pizza. Food for thought, I could really murder a pizza right now. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this design style throughout the era of the PlayStation. The 2D backgrounds look great, and it's a good way of min-maxing the limited resources available at the time with the console or PC version. I will admit the actual cheapy 3D character models are a little bit lacking, especially compared to later Final Fantasies on the same system. But at the time this was still considered pretty great quality. This style of these character models is also pretty nostalgic for me, to the point where I even start collecting Square Enix's own polygon figures. They're pretty expensive and my Sephiroth can't even stand up straight, he's got one leg bigger than the other. Can't say I remember Sephiroth having one leg bigger than the other, but sometimes I forget these kind of things. It doesn't take very long before we're also thrown into our first turn-based battle, where there's a pretty large jump in visual quality of the character models. Flickering through menus to select actions is not for everyone. The real satisfaction in this combat comes in exploiting elemental weaknesses, coming up with strategies, and building up or customizing your characters. There's some really spectacular attacks and animations in the combat of the Final Fantasy series, and experiencing them for the first time in 3D was pretty amazing. Limit breaks are also a new addition. When you take damage, your limit gauge fills. Once full, your character can perform signature overpowered attacks that are really satisfying to use. Midgar is run by our antagonists, the corrupt Shinra Electric Power Company. It seems weird for an electric power company to be the villains, but its board of directors is very much a group of disgustingly greedy scum, led by President Shinra. Shinra are pretty much draining the energy or life stream of the planet to power the city of Midgar. We're playing a mercenary working for the eco-terrorists Avalanche to stop them. Can't say there's many games where you actively play as a terrorist. Avalanche starts out with a group of good-hearted goofballs, but Avalanche grows and evolves over time, recruiting new members and changing how they do things. It's the crew of Final Fantasy VII that make the journey so incredible. Every character has their own developments and stories. We've got Cloud we mentioned earlier. Throughout the story he's having breakdowns and seizures. It's clear that Cloud isn't quite right. Not that kind of messed up, but he does struggle with his own identity. Barret is the passionate leader of Avalanche. He's carrying a lot of burdens and he just can't seem to catch a break. I feel like Barret is a bit of an underrated character, or sometimes overlooked. He's often perceived as a Mr. T-like character. But Barret surprisingly has some of the most developments throughout the story, and despite everything, Barret comes out on top, even coming to terms with the idea that he might have gone about fighting Shinra the wrong way. If there's one guy you want at your back, it's Barret. Red 13, or Nanakai, is an intelligent, awesome red lion-like animal, and a fan favourite who lives with his grandpa. Red has daddy issues. His dad, Seto, is believed to be a coward, leaving Cosmo Canyon to defend itself against the G tribe. Red's journey involves discovering the truth behind his father, leading to one of the tear-jerking moments in FF7. Speaking of the G tribe, when I first played Final Fantasy VII I was terrible. The leader of the G tribe, G Natak, was the first major boss I struggled with, and he was a massive dick. Just watch how fast I can defeat him now with a bit of Final Fantasy knowledge and experience. This is the old healing items on the undead trick. I think we can all relate to Sid a little bit. He's an old pilot and engineer who dreams of space, but he's had those dreams shattered when he cancelled his rocket launch to save the life of the woman Shira, leaving him with a ton of animosity towards Shira. I really want to see him fulfill his dreams. Sid is a tough-talking natural leader, but good at heart. He even gets voted to lead the party in the absence of Cloud, and is usually one of my top picks for my party setup with some badass abilities. Kate Sith is a bit of a weird character. We've got a magically stuffed Moogle being controlled by a cat with a microphone, who is in turn being controlled by Reeve, a member of the Shinra board. Kate Sith is used by Shinra to spy on us. Luckily, Reeve is the only one on the Shinra board that has any kind of conscience. And after a few developments, we turn the tables and we use Reeve to spy on Shinra. Something often overlooked is Kate Sith's fortune-telling ability. He tells Cloud, what you pursue will be yours, but you will lose something dear. On my first playthrough, I just completely forgot about this, but it's pretty chilling when you notice this on future playthroughs, already knowing the bigger picture. Tifa's a badass martial artist and core pillar at Avalanche. She selflessly commits to helping others. Tifa shares a childhood with Cloud, and between the two of them, they made the promise, if she's ever in trouble, her hero will come and rescue her. But throughout FF7, there's subtle hints that there's more going on and she's hiding something. Our flower girl Aerith has a playful nature, and as the most powerful magic user in FF7, she makes her a great healer. We recruit Aerith after Cloud accidentally falls through her church roof and end up protecting her from Shinra. We quickly learn that there's more to Aerith, with Shinra showing a keen interest in her for their science projects. But the dirty skank is more interested in the love triangle forming between her, Tifa, and Cloud. Two party members are completely missable, Vincent and Yuffie. Being optional, these characters are not throwaway shoo-ins. In modern day gaming, this kind of optional content is rare, with a lot of games companies having the wrong philosophies on game design, afraid to put time and money into developing content that not everyone might experience. Yuffie is a materia hunter and ninja from Wutai, with a shared dislike for Shinra. She kind of forces her way into the party and has her own selfish agenda. She also has her own developments with her father, who encourages her materia hunting and thievery. While Vincent looks like an actual vampire, and not the sparkly kind. He originally worked for Shinra as a Turk. He was horrifically experimented on by Professor Hojo, who also took his love, Lucrezia, and performed further vile experiments on their unborn child. Riddled with nightmares of his own failures, Vincent has his own motives for joining Avalanche. Again, it just seems madness by today's standards that you can never actually meet these characters in your playthrough. I love this, and it adds so much replayability and agency to FF7. But what a crew! I don't want to get too in detail with these characters for now. There's a few other lesser characters who are pretty awesome too. Big fan favourites include the bad guys Reino and Rude, who belong to Shinra's shady special task force, the Turks. You can overhear them gossiping about who they fancy the most from Avalanche. Moments like this help them feel a little bit more human. They were loved so much they ended up getting bigger parts in the FF7 remake and Advent Children movie. There's also Jesse, Biggs and Wedge, the oldest members of Avalanche. From technical expertise to kicking ass, these three always have their hearts in the right place, and again these beloved characters ended up getting fleshed out with bigger roles in the FF7 remake. Before I get a bit into the story, the Final Fantasy series is well known for its incredible game soundtracks. Come the dawn of CD-ROMs, we got a real jump in audio quality, along with a soundtrack that was nearly 5 hours in length, which at the time made for one of the largest soundtracks in gaming. Throughout the course of the game you will hear the same tracks a few times, but they're just so catchy and replayable I don't mind. One good example is with the general battle theme. It's used a lot throughout the game, but in tougher encounters you'll get deeper into the battle theme. As the fight becomes increasingly dire, the music itself transforms with more and more instruments kicking in. You're only going to hear this part of the general battle theme in the more challenging encounters. There's an especially incredible range of pieces from the legendary Nobuo Uematsu here. He describes FF7 as leaving the biggest impression on him, in the sense that this was the point he could start challenging boundaries and being more experimental, due to that upgrade to CD-ROM based gaming. Nobuo describes the process he went through as sitting alone every day taking on musical challenge after challenge, with no goals and no feedback or opinions with others. And hell it works, because this man is a musical genius. Every step of FF7's journey is bliss, every music piece so memorable I can easily listen to any few seconds of this 5-hour soundtrack and visualise parts of the game that go with it. From the saddest moments to the creepy confusing moments, to epic high tension boss battles. In fact, when I think of FF7, some of the first pieces that come to mind are a lot of the boss themes. The general boss theme, JENOVA's theme, Sephiroth's theme. These are probably more memorable for me because when I first started playing FF7 I was a bit of a young noob who struggled with some of the bosses. I can remember dying to the very first boss of the game, the Guard Scorpion. Not entirely my fault though. Cloud says, "Attack while its tail's up," so I have everyone attack while its tail's up, and he then continues speaking, "Attack while its tail's up," and it's going a counter-attack with its laser. But it was too late, and unsurprisingly the boss counter-attacked with its laser. That was the first time I met the dreaded game over screen. But I didn't give up and I got to experience the full story of FF7. It's a little complex. I know in my first playthrough some of the plot flew over my head, but the game does make attempts to help you understand what's going on, often simply by your party members regularly meeting up, summarising the story, and going through what their next objectives are. To get a little bit into the story, it's very much focused around Avalanche versus Shinra. A few hours into the game we've destroyed a few planet-destroying reactors with Avalanche, explored the city of Midgar, and met the flower girl Aerith. There's already massive developments that let you know Squaresoft aren't half-arsing the storytelling. President Shinra decides to completely drop one of Midgar's plates in the hopes of snuffing out Avalanche, at the cost of effectively murdering the inhabitants of Midgar's Sector 7 and its slums. Biggs, Wedge, Jesse, half of Avalanche is now dead. Barrett is devastated. We also find out there's more to our flower girl Aerith than she lets on, and she's been captured by Shinra. As a player, this sets up our motivation and drive for revenge through storming the Shinra HQ at the centre of Midgar, our mission to rescue Aerith. We have the agency of choosing between sneaking up the side stairs or forcefully battling our way through the floors of the Shinra HQ. We eventually discover and trigger one of the monstrosities Shinra are experimenting with, JENOVA, who's missing her head and terrifyingly looks like she's escaped from a Resident Evil game. Shit hits the fan with Avalanche eventually captured, but turns out our very presence causes JENOVA to go missing, leaving trails of blood everywhere and creating our chance to escape with Aerith. In the upper floors we finally come face to face with our antagonist, President Shinra, but he's already dead. Impaled by Sephiroth's sword. Enter our true antagonist, Sephiroth. This is someone we've never actually met, and we only hear mentions or rumours of how great and powerful this ex-Shinra soldier is. Also enter Vice President Rufus, Shinra's son. Hands down, this is one of my personal favourite moments in FF7. Cloud faces off against the Vice President, while the entire Shinra army comes crashing down on Avalanche, sending squads of troops and murder robots one after the other. Overwhelmed, we try to escape Midgar through the motorway. After an awesome cinematic, my mind was blown away by the motorbike gameplay, which is the first of many minigames. When we run out of road, we again transition into one last boss fight with Shinra's latest robotic creation, Motorbull, as it comes crashing in from behind. If it wasn't for the fact that there were 3 discs to the game, you could have easily assumed that this was the end of the game, or at least that the game was only set in Midgar. But we've done so much in Midgar, and we're not even halfway through the game's first disc. The end of the highway is very symbolic here. This is the end of the Midgar section of the game, and this is where the real game begins. As we load into an overworld map, we realise the scale of the game, with our Midgar being a tiny dot on the map. First time playing this was pretty jaw-dropping, and just the perfect icing on the cake after that entire section of storming and escaping the Shinra building. I'd never played a game anywhere near this kind of scale before. Despite its scale, there's a great balance between the serious story and funny moments. The goofy graphic style helps with the humour. You'll be cross-dressing to seduce a pimp, checking out the Honeybee Inn, which is a brothel, badly infiltrating Shinra and disguising the team as soldiers, and witnessing Shinra scum getting a taste of karma at full speed. But whatever you end up doing, you'll often be presented with choices. Extra agency throughout the journey is welcome, and while it may not seem like there's consequences behind your actions, choices secretly adjust hidden reputation levels with characters. Your choices will change certain scenes in the game, and it also determines who you get to go on a date with later on. And yes, you can go on a date with Barrett, if you're nice enough to him. The best design choices don't always have any urgency behind them. You may not even realise you're making a choice, or the impact behind your actions, but your actions, no matter how small, will likely have an impact somewhere. This was actually something I was worried the Final Fantasy VII remake would fail to recreate, but I'm actually happy how it turned out. I have to try and restrain myself from talking about the remake here though. I'll admit there are a few mistakes with translations from the game, originally being in Japanese. The 2 big notorious ones in the PlayStation version involve Aerith stating, "This guy are sick," which became a little meme of its own. And Ares herself should actually be called Aerith, but if this really bothers you, you do get the opportunity to change her name. I had an interview for a game development role. They were asking what I would like to change in my favourite game, FF7. Aside from a few translation fixes, this is a question that has been drilling my brain. I pretty much consider FF7 to be close to perfect. Maybe another optional super boss, or dungeon wouldn't hurt, or getting to explore another unseen sector of Midgar. Just asking for more content feels like a bit of a cop-out. I think I'd like to see a bit of our antagonist's past. We only hear light mentions of his struggles, living a life of feeling different from everyone else. It's only during the escape of Midgar that we discover this real antagonist, Sephiroth, a pretty mysterious character. Up until now we've only heard his name mentioned, or discovered the bodies left in his wake. The very first time we see Sephiroth is through Cloud retelling his past with Shinra. It's 5 years ago and he's just casually slaughtering dragons, giving us a sense of just how powerful this guy is straight away. In one particular mission, Cloud and Sephiroth arrive at the town of Nibelheim. Tifa serves as their guide. Cloud and Sephiroth cross paths with Shinra's latest experiment, the Resident Evil-like monster from earlier, JENOVA. She comes into play and triggers events. TLDR version, Sephiroth discovers that he's been a science experiment and the alien JENOVA is what he believes to be his mother. In his research he goes mad and slaughters Cloud's hometown, family, and leaves Tifa mortally wounded. There's a sudden end to Cloud's story with him presumably KO'd. Some would argue that there's a bit of criticism to be had around Sephiroth going from good guy to full on crazy and losing his humanity. I'd say we do see the cracks in Sephiroth's insecurities forming. Which brings me back to my earlier point, if I could change anything, I'd like to see more of Sephiroth's troubled past, of trying to fit in with regular humanity. This could totally be in the form of optional story flashbacks. FF7 already does a few of these really well. But there's also a symbiosis between Sephiroth and JENOVA that helps deepen the madness, especially after they've had their little reunion. So what's our antagonist's goal? It's the same as Shinra and JENOVA's, to find the promised land, rich with Mako energy for the taking. We travel the world following Sephiroth's shadow, with Shinra not far behind. Sephiroth is such a beloved villain. Both he and Cloud managed to make it into Nintendo Super Smash Bros, even though Squaresoft abandoned Nintendo to put FF7 on PlayStation and PC instead. When it came to Sephiroth's Smash reveal, Nintendo treated him with massive respect, as he wipes the floor of Smash's big villain, the entire Smash cast, and even appears to impale Mario in his own iconic way. Mad respect from Nintendo for this villain. It's about time I got into the more technical side of Final Fantasy VII, namely the Materia system. Every good RPG needs a fun customization and progression system to keep gameplay fresh, and the Materia system is just that. It's unique. The closest system in any other game would be the gem sockets in the action RPG Path of Exile, which is awesome in its own right. Materia are little coloured orbs all about the world of FF7, made from the planet's lifestream, and every one you find will potentially allow you to use useful magic, enhance your characters, or summon powerful beings based on mythology. It's really exciting when you find some new materia and you can start planning or experimenting with what it can potentially do and where it could fit into your custom build. The equipment you wear is the cup that holds the materia, and their little links between materia slots allow you to combo materia together. This is where it gets really interesting. You could pair up powerful combos. You could say cast the same spell 4 times in a row with Quadra Magic, or pair up Final Attack and the Phoenix Summon so that when your character dies, he'll summon Phoenix as his final attack and resurrect the rest of the party. Materia at first may seem a deceptively simple system, but there's actually massive depth here. There's even one notoriously tough optional boss that requires very powerful materia combinations to defeat. It's a real test of your mastery over the materia system. The more you use materia, the stronger it will become, unlocking new actions, effects, or enhancing the effectiveness of materia, which also adds another rewarding layer of progression to all those random encounters. Previous Final Fantasy games had the pretty awesome job system where you could assign roles to your characters, such as the legendary Dark Knight or signature Red Mage. While FF7 doesn't have a job system per se, the materia system's customization allows you to recreate these job roles. Deck somebody out with summon materia and you've got a summoner, or healing and support materia for a white mage equivalent. One of my favourite builds is to equip somebody with cover and counterattack. They'll take damage for allies, then retaliate with a counterattack. You can further enhance the build by equipping HP+, long range, and putting them in the back row, so they're even better at taking hits and they'll last longer, effectively creating a powerful defensive tank for the entire group. Using the materia system to exploit elemental weaknesses is also pretty satisfying too. For example, robots will be weak to lightning, but earth elemental magic will not work against flying enemies. I would make use of the sense materia to discover different enemy strengths and weaknesses, then exploit them. The dragon summoning Bahamut materias are visually stunning, over the top at scorching your enemies with mega flares. But in the secret island at the very edge of the world lies the most powerful materia in the game. You'd need to spend a lot of time acquiring a legendary golden chocobo to even just reach this island. More on this later, but the time spent is worth it for the overpowered Knights of the Round materia, which has all 13 Knights of the Round chopping up your enemies one by one, with King Arthur making the epic final blow with Excalibur. Now this is reward for time well spent. So we travel the world chasing Sephiroth, all sorts of adventures along the way. Some involving murderous frogs, real-time strategy battles over Fort Condor, and weird men with black capes. I don't have the time to go through every little element of Final Fantasy VII, I'm just going to abbreviate and focus on the core points and top moments. So we catch up to Sephiroth at the Temple of the Ancients where he shares his plans. Sephiroth requires the black materia from this Temple of the Ancients. With it he can summon Meteor into the planet. The planet itself would use the life stream to heal its wound inflicted by the meteor, but Sephiroth would merge with that energy to become a god. In an act of redemption for earlier spying on us on behalf of Shinra, Cait Sith dramatically sacrifices himself to solve the puzzle of the temple, so that Avalanche can keep the black materia out of Sephiroth's hands. Rest in peace, my friend, you will be missed, and never mind, he's back with a new model. In typical fashion, the villain then appears to claim the prize. Sephiroth also reveals that he has some power over Cloud to manipulate him. Cloud then gets abusive with Aerith until your other party member knocks him out. With Cloud KO'd, Aerith speaks to him in his dreams. Sephiroth has acquired the black materia, so she's going ahead to the City of the Ancients to protect the planet from Meteor. It kind of makes sense with Sephiroth having power over Cloud making him dangerous, but Sephiroth isn't too happy about this. After a struggle with catching up to Aerith, we find her praying at an altar in the ruined City of the Ancients. She's praying with her special white materia in an attempt to summon Holy to protect the planet from the coming meteor. Sephiroth again tries to manipulate Cloud, this time into killing Aerith, but we manage to resist. But then it happens, one of the most notorious moments in all of Final Fantasy. She's stabbed through the back and we're kind of stabbed in the gut as the player. And what really devastated me, we permanently lost a party member, adept with magic, and she was our main healer. I hadn't even finished getting all of her limit breaks yet. Aerith's theme plays one last time, but there's no time to process what's happened. While still in shock, JENOVA attacks and Aerith's theme continues to play. What a way to end the first disc. Surely things can't get any worse. On a lighter note, you may have noticed some characters have wide gaping holes for their mouths. This is because I play on the PC version or Steam version. Why do I prefer playing the Steam version? It's the cloud saves. Sorry. Aerith is permanently gone now, but what's interesting is if you mod or hack Aerith back into the game, she'll appear in locations where the party meets up, and she'll actually have dialogue. This is because her death was not the original plan of the devs. Aerith's death is a big part of gaming history. It's influenced a lot in the gaming sphere. The movie Wreck-It Ralph even has a cheeky little reference to it. Aerith lives. If only. Also, if you return to the church where you first met Aerith, you can catch a glimpse of her spooky ghost. I can really appreciate these extra little spices developed into the game. Both Avalanche and Shinra continue the goose chase with Sephiroth all the way to the northern cavern, where Meteor can be summoned. No better way to shrug off all those nightmares and depression than with snowboarding. We come across more of those weird black-caped men, and eventually Sephiroth and JENOVA. After fighting off JENOVA, we're able to reacquire the black materia. The tables are starting to turn. Bear with me, this is where the story starts to get a little complex, but it really pays off. Sephiroth messes with Cloud, revealing Cloud isn't who he thinks he is. Sephiroth retells Cloud's past story of events 5 years ago, but this time who we thought was Cloud was replaced by somebody else with black hair. Sephiroth reveals that Cloud was a puppet made by Shinra's Professor Hojo 5 years ago. These are fake memories. He's a puppet pumped with JENOVA cells and Mako energy, an incomplete Sephiroth clone unlike the other black-hooded men who were also Hojo's experiments with JENOVA cells. All this time, Sephiroth has been controlling JENOVA and those with JENOVA cells inside them. If enough of JENOVA cells can come together in reunion, Sephiroth can take form or he can become stronger. All we've been chasing is JENOVA and Sephiroth's shadow. Meanwhile, Shinra comes across the true Sephiroth, crystallized in a coma-like state, the one controlling everything. A completely lost Cloud hands over the black materia to the true Sephiroth, and all is lost. Sephiroth reawakens. Sensing the danger, the planet awakens 5 powerful weapon monstrosities to protect itself. Cloud is completely lost and left behind. Avalanche is captured by Shinra, and Meteor has been summoned, starting the countdown to doom. Okay, so maybe things could get worse, but every hero's journey needs a grand ordeal and a state of failure. Even with impending doom, there's always time for minigames in FF7. In fact, there's more minigames here than any other single-player Final Fantasy. For the most part, I actually really enjoyed all the minigames, especially for 1997, they're pretty fun. There's even a dedicated area for minigames, the flashy and extravagant Gold Saucer, which houses plenty of amusements and even badass rewards to earn, including more materia. We've got the motorbike minigame we saw earlier, snowboarding, submarine missions, real-time strategy battles, on-rails roller coaster shooters, chocobo racing, breeding, and lots of other little minor activities. Minigames help spice up the regular gameplay, and there's often incentives to do them. I used to play G-Bike loads at the Gold Saucer. I'd then use my points I earned to enter challenges in the battle arena in the hopes of earning Cloud's ultimate over-the-top limit break, Omni Slash. Chocobo racing was another big one for me. I'd be out catching chocobos, racing them, then breeding them with fingers crossed in hopes of getting different coloured chocobos. Each colour had special abilities that could be used to acquire rare treasures in the overworld. Side content isn't labelled as side quests, like a lot of modern RPGs with their quest journals and mission lists. It's much more discreet about it. It's up to you to discover or solve this content and reap the potential rewards. There's a strong sense of discovery and problem solving involved, rather than working through quest lists or fetch quests, and there's an even stronger sense of accomplishment when you are rewarded for using your brain. There's never any shortage of activities or side content to do in FF7, and it's just awesome being able to pull away from the main story and focus on some side content, potentially earning some new materia, equipment, or limit breaks that will actually help you with the main story content. Well, at least if Avalanche hadn't been captured by Shinra. We take control of Barret and Tifa, scapegoats for the Meteor situation, and are awaiting their public executions. Luckily for us, one of the 5 weapons awoken earlier, the Sapphire weapon, interferes with Shinra's plans, and has Shinra distracted in an all-out war. With Avalanche reassembling, we make our escape and claim the airship Highwind for ourselves, while Shinra defeats the first of the weapons. The Highwind unlocks new locations, and in the town of Midgar, we find Cloud badly poisoned by Mako after falling into the livestream. With Tifa staying behind to care for Cloud, Sid steps up as the leader of Avalanche. both Shinra and Avalanche now in search of huge materia to battle Sephiroth. Returning to Midgar a little bit later, the second weapon, Ultimate Weapon, attacks. In a freak accident, Tifa and Cloud fall into the planet's livestream. It's here that Tifa is able to help put Cloud's mind back together again. So we've currently got two different versions of what happened 5 years ago with Sephiroth going mad. There's Cloud's version, where he arrives to the town of Nibelheim with Sephiroth and a few Shinra troopers, and there's Sephiroth's version, where Cloud wasn't there, but this strange black-haired man appeared in his place. We can finally hear Tifa's side, as she served as a guide on the mission and has been afraid to speak up about this. Sadly, Tifa shares the same version as Sephiroth. Cloud was never there or involved. Things aren't looking too good for Cloud, suggesting he really is just a puppet, experiment, or a clone. But with a little help from Tifa, Cloud remembers their childhood memories, proving he was not created 5 years ago as a Sephiroth clone with JENOVA cells, unlocking the true version of the story. This is my favourite moment and the most important moment in Final Fantasy VII. We then get to learn what really happened 5 years ago and why Cloud was so confused and certain he was there. Cloud was too embarrassed to show himself in front of Tifa after failing to become a soldier, and he already defeated Sephiroth 5 years ago. Sephiroth flowed through the livestream gaining its knowledge and ended up in his crystallized state in the northern crater, the one we just awoken earlier. Cloud even managed to fulfill his promise to Tifa, and she never knew. Enter our lost heroes Zack. Zack and Cloud were captured by Shinra and experimented on with JENOVA cells by Professor Hojo, completely messing Cloud and his memories up. Zack manages to escape and get Cloud out, but on the run, Zack is brutally shot down by Shinra, Cloud taking on Zack's Buster Sword and Mantle, allowing Final Fantasy VII to begin. Yoshiniro Kitase, the director of FF7, has this to say about Cloud. There wasn't really much controversy or criticism about having him as the hero from within Square, but he is definitely a mysterious character. That's one of the game's main themes, the fact that the protagonist has all these secrets to unravel. He isn't a straightforward hero like Superman, rather he has lots of mysteries, self-doubts, and a real dark side. This is what makes FF7's main character and story so interesting. We're told fallacies and a fake narrative through someone confused, who has lost their identity and past thanks to the experiments performed on him with JENOVA cells. Our villain is able to exploit this to magnify all his doubts and break Cloud. When we finally put all the pieces together, it's incredibly satisfying witnessing the truth. All that self-doubt unwarranted, with Cloud already defeating the villain and fulfilling his childhood promise 5 years ago. We then see a bit of a transformation with Cloud, gaining a stronger resistance to Sephiroth's control and manipulations. Sephiroth is quite the nasty pasty. One theory I had was that JENOVA was actually the one controlling Sephiroth, but it's confirmed in the game that it's actually Sephiroth controlling JENOVA. JENOVA is a shapeshifter, and Sephiroth is able to control JENOVA and those with JENOVA cells inside them. If there's enough of JENOVA, he can use JENOVA's shapeshifting abilities to transform them into himself, albeit they won't be as powerful as the original true Sephiroth. Let's rewind a bit with a full picture. So when we first discovered JENOVA in Shinra's HQ, the reunion of JENOVA cells inside of Cloud triggered her. JENOVA broke free and transformed into Sephiroth, who then broke Cloud free so he can manipulate him. JENOVA then proceeded to murder President Shinra and then travel the world along with the Black Hooded Men to return to the original crystallized Sephiroth. So all this time we've only been chasing JENOVA, or those with JENOVA cells, and every time we catch up to them, we end up fighting a part of JENOVA. It makes sense now. Maybe this is why I enjoy FF7 so much. It's complicated and ambiguous. There's such a satisfying feeling putting all these pieces together and getting the bigger picture. For all our technical advancements with processors, memory, and graphics since 1997, storytelling often seems to be thrown to the wayside and forgotten about. With a few exceptions, of course. I'm not saying storytelling should take precedence over something like gameplay, but some good storytelling and character development can really make you enjoy the whole game experience that much more. One of the core themes of Final Fantasy VII is loss and life. There's a lot of loss in FF7, from Cloud losing his identity to Aerith's loss of life. Everyone is suffering in some form and has lost something, and everyone deals with the weight of it differently. Tifa's lost her family, Cid's lost his dreams, Barrett's lost friends, Yuffie's lost her home's freedom, Vincent's lost his humanity, and Red 13's lost his father. Avalanche is a crew of broken people, but despite all this, everything is going to be okay. Sometimes you just need a little bit of optimism like Barrett, because there ain't no getting off this train. You all need to be more like Barrett. Time for a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow. Just kidding, actually I'm sick to death of seeing this game in every other video as a sponsor. I've played it, and well, let's just say, do you notice how all the people advertising Raid Shadow Legends never actually show themselves playing, or if they do, they've got low level characters? Yeah, sorry to all the Raid Shadow Legends fans out there, but play something good, like Final Fantasy VII. With Cloud fixed, we finish up hunting our huge materia, which involves hijacking ourselves a submarine, also hijacking Cid's rocket. Shinra are planning to launch the rocket and huge materia at Meteor to try and destroy it. That ain't gonna work, and we want that materia for ourselves. In the rocket safe room, we'll need to guess the password to acquire the powerful materia. The catch is there's a countdown timer, so I'd have to rush to one of my gaming cheat books to find the answer. Yeah, the internet wasn't quite as available back then and I was too lazy to solve it. We take the time to recollect our thoughts, and with Red 13's grandpa, Bugenhagen, we learn in Aerith's final moments she was praying to summon Holy to stop Meteor. Hopefully it worked. The third weapon then makes its appearance, Diamond Weapon, and it's rampaging towards Midgar. Being the nice guys we are, we fight off the weapon, whilst Shinra reveals their latest addition to Midgar, the Sister Ray, which obliterates the Diamond Weapon and opens the way to Sephiroth at the Northern Crater. But in an exchange of fire, Shinra's President Rufus is caught in a blast and reported dead. Shinra is in chaos, with Professor Hojo planning to fire the overheated Sister Ray again, which is going to have catastrophic results on the city. We need to make one more train stop at Midgar, one last time before the end, coming full circle to where everything began. It's so satisfying storming the streets of Midgar and cleaning up the rest of Shinra after everything we've been through. This is the final obstacle between us and the Northern Cave, with our face-off with Sephiroth. The devs actually originally planned for more of your party to die at this point. In the words of the devs, okay, so maybe I did kill Aerith, but if I hadn't stopped you, in the second half of the game, you were planning to kill everyone off, but the final 3 characters the player chooses. Kinda glad they didn't. I think all this death would have just been too much, and I believe if you give the player the choice of who dies, it can ruin the impact and lasting effect of the death, as you could have different characters die each playthrough. But then again, I've seen other games like Undertale where this has worked, but in other games it didn't. Tetsuya Nomura, the man who led the development of the Kingdom Hearts series, backs the decision, saying, "The theme of Final Fantasy VII was life, and we sacrificed Aerith in order to give weight and depth to that theme. Her death is a tragedy, but if we suddenly just killed everyone else off after that, it would dilute the meaning of her death. When I do return to Midgar, I always make sure to bring Vincent so he can get some personal vengeance on Hojo for what he's done to him, and Barrett, otherwise I'd miss his ultimate weapon. Approaching Hojo, he hits us with one last bombshell. This is the man behind everything. He's the father of Sephiroth, and he's experimented on his own child. In a last act of madness, he wants to use the Sister Ray to give Sephiroth more energy, and he's injected himself with JENOVA cells as a last resort. He takes on a form more suited to him that we're gonna put down. Again, this is another stage of our hero's journey. Just before our final encounters with Sephiroth, we must take the road back to where everything began, and now everyone must personally decide if they will return to their personal lives or go for the higher cause and fight Sephiroth. But before we dive into the final location, like any good RPG, there's tons of optional endgame activities to do. Chocobo racing, gold saucer activities, hunting down ultimate weapons and powerful materia, but the optional ultimate bosses are the cherry on top. Mentioned earlier, the planet itself awakens powerful monsters known as weapons to save itself from Sephiroth. They're all colossal in size, and we've got the Diamond, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald and Ultimate Weapon. Sapphire and Diamond have been taken care of by Shinra, but the other 3 are still about as optional super bosses. Growing up, I didn't find the Ultimate Weapon too challenging. Just fly around and give him a thrashing. The reward, Cloud's Ultimate Weapon and easy access to the Forbidden Forest. But the Emerald Weapon was tough. My simple strategy was to just level up all my characters to level 99, equip some decent materia, and it worked. This rewarded 3 Master Materia, which contained all the main materia in one. Pretty cool. While the Ruby Weapon was my Final Fantasy bane for a long ass time. It was tough, plain and simple. I can remember the very first time I accidentally encountered this monstrosity. Curious at a little red shape in the desert, I approached, and he rose up and utterly destroyed me. He ejects 2 of your party members out of the battle with whirlpools, surrounds you with his tentacles, and just decimates you with a mix of everything nasty. It wasn't until much later on in another playthrough I finally put this thing down. I had to acquire a golden chocobo, which is a challenge of its own, but to reach a secret cave at the corner of the world, which held the most powerful materia in the game, Knights of the Round. Only after coming up with a crazy materia setup with this, I finally beat them and was rewarded with another golden chocobo, which was useless, but honestly the real reward was the sense of accomplishment in finally beating the ruby weapon, and getting to wear that achievement on my profile. There's also a key hidden in the Bone Village that allows you to return to Midgar's Sector 5. I was obsessed with finding a way back into Midgar, but I couldn't find it and I had to look in the official strategy guide in a store for how to do it. Hell, I wasn't paying for it. There's a lot of other optional content, adventures with Yuffie and Wutai, an underwater crashed plane, and the ancient forest to explore. But best of all, you can get a bit more out of the story through flashbacks. Return to Nibelheim and learn about Zack, or if you can find Lucrezia, you can witness Vincent's past. When the time is right, we make a move on Sephiroth and battle our way through the northern cave, with a lot of memorable Final Fantasy monsters finally making an appearance. Tomberries always creep me out, slowly waddling towards their target with Knives of Doom. We have to split the party up and assign members to different paths. It might just be me, but when you have to make important decisions with your party in Mass Effect 2's big mission, it always makes me weirdly nostalgic of this part of FF7. If you've played Mass Effect 2, you know what I'm talking about. Is that me just being weird? After filling our pockets with treasure and materia, it's not long before we come face to face with JENOVA's final form and kick her ass again. Sephiroth makes his appearance, along with Aerith's Holy, she summoned just before she died. It's imprisoned and our last hope against the impending meteor. We have to battle the awoken Sephiroth as he's transitioning into a more godlike being. Notice how the real Sephiroth doesn't have any legs? My theory has always been that Cloud butchered his legs when he was nearly cut in half, after Cloud first defeated him 5 years ago. Depending on your level and how fast you defeat JENOVA, all 8 of Avalanche get to take part in the fight. The music playing is even called Birth of a God. It always weirdly reminded me of trains. I think it's the tempo or the beats that remind me of a train speeding up. It feels like we're building up to the last metaphorical train stop of FF7. We transition into the final phase of the fight and the haunting beats of one-winged angels begin to play as Sephiroth descends from above. Whenever you think of Sephiroth, it's probably his one-winged angel music that's playing in your head. It's not an easy fight. Some of his status effects can catch you off guard. He likes to casually summon a supernova for critical damage, and we have to watch the entire solar system get destroyed. So over the top, I love it. In Sephiroth's last-ditch effort, he tries to manipulate and control Cloud through his JENOVA cells. Cloud has one last metaphysical battle with Sephiroth, but it's over pretty fast with the limit gauge building up as they face each other off. Your reward is the lengthy final cinematic of the game. Holy clashes against Meteor, but it's too late, with Meteor breaking through, tearing up Midgar. Aerith herself has the planet's livestream rush to help stop the Meteor. She succeeds at stopping Meteor and her spirit shows itself for a few seconds. Just like how the game's opening cinematic started, we're left with the credits and a sneak peek of the planet 500 years later, with Red 13 still alive. I used to believe that Aerith came back to life at the end, but clearly not, as she's still dead in the follow-up movie Advent Children. What a journey it's been. We can finally get off this train. FF7 to me is that special game you replay nearly every year. You wouldn't think such a story-focused RPG would be so replayable, but the Materia system helps through experimenting with different builds each time, and you can always bring along different party members to the journey, even just to see how they react to certain events differently. But every time I do replay FF7, I pick up on new little things in the story I haven't noticed before, like some really subtly weaved in foreshadowing. For example, Sephiroth is able to invade Cloud's dream of Aerith, only because he's kind of a part of Cloud through his JENOVA cells. Or Kate Sif's fortune-telling prophecies. I'm pretty good at coming up with new ways to add extra challenges to replaying FF7. In fact, on the back of the manual they've got an advertisement for a PlayStation memory card with the challenge, try beating FF7 without one. It's a pretty big challenge. You'd have to beat the game in one sitting without saving and without dying. The modern day ports of FF7 have achievements too. There's a Steam achievement for acquiring and mastering all materia, which took me donkeys to farm, and I was having to make checklists for all the materia. One of the most surprising developments would be the speedrun community around FF7. Thousands will watch FF7 being speedrun, and all the glitches and exploits can be pretty fascinating. The legacy of Final Fantasy VII was so successful, it did also spawn a few cameos in games, spin-off games, sequels and prequels. I think Advent Children the movie and Crisis Core were my favourites of all the spin-offs. But with everything, I don't really like many of the additions or new characters added to the story that didn't exist in the original story of FF7. For me, Final Fantasy VII is the closest thing to a masterpiece in gaming. I do really like a lot of the Final Fantasy games, especially between 6 and 10, which are my real bread and butter. I think if anyone claimed Final Fantasy VI was the best, I wouldn't argue it's pretty amazing also. For me, I feel like 7 came out at the most perfect time with the dawn of 3D and CDs that really helped cement its legacy. As I said before, FF7 shaped my childhood and was a big factor in my pursuit of a game design and game development education and career. I don't think there's any better way of describing this game. I do plan on doing a video on the FF7 remake in the future. I went into it super critical with low expectations after some of Square Enix's lackluster or mediocre releases, and to be honest, I ended up loving it, with a few criticisms. I'm out of things to say. If you're still here, I'm honoured and really thankful that you've made it this far into the video. Hopefully I can get more than 10 views. Peace!